I'm a little eepy today, but you know what'll wake me right up? Attacking for lethal damage. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today we are going to be playing with Eldrazi again, but the build is going to be different from other things that we've featured on the channel so far. If you have been listening to my podcast, the Eternal Glory podcast, something that I've said in the last couple of episodes is that there is no stock Eldrazi list right now. The deck is still being developed. It is highly in flux. People don't agree what you should be playing, in what numbers, in what colors, all that sort of stuff. So today's build is going to feature Nulldrifter, which I don't think I have played in the Eldrazi Aggro shell on this channel yet. Now, this is presumably an endgame bomb most of the time. Like, we are playing this to cast this at 7 mana to draw 2 cards, and we have the full playset of It That Heralds the End to make our Nulldrifters cost 1 less. And yes, these will stack. So if we somehow end up with a couple copies of It That Heralds the End, and I don't know, maybe an Eye of Ugin or something like that, we can get some pretty crazy things happening. Now, this build is very notably different from the other ones that we are playing on this channel. And Chen, thank you for submitting this, by the way, because this one is actually playing both Eldrazi Mimic and Reality Smasher, which are cards that are not normally seeing play in this shell right now. And you'll notice that, like, we are not in the green for Sowing Mycospawn, which has kind of become a part of the backbone of this deck list. So, what's the payoff for building your deck like this, like Chen has? The answer is actually Eldrazi Mimic. In the more traditional builds of Eldrazi that are running around right now, the curve tends to start at 3, with lots of Glaring Fleshrakers, and then Eldrazi Repurposer at 4 mana, Sowing Mycospawn. Wastegate Battlemage is technically a 2-drop, but you would prefer not to cast it at 2 mana. You get more value if you save it for later. The idea with this build is, let's play more early game creatures. Let's actually have more early game plays. Counting Chalice of the Void, and assuming we have a Soul Land on turn 1, you have 12 1-mana plays, or turn 1 plays, which is not normally the case for this deck list. And one of the payoffs you get for building your deck in this fashion is Ugin's Labyrinth. So when this enters, you may exile a colorless card with mana value 7 or greater from your hand. That's any of these. If you do so, Ugin's Labyrinth becomes an Ancient Tomb that does not hurt you. It just taps for 2 colorless later, 2 colorless mana, and later on you can just return the exiled card to its owner's hand. So the deck building's a bit different here. And with Eldrazi Mimic, you can do a real cute thing with Nulldrifter. So your Eldrazi Mimic is a base 2/1 creature, but if you evoke your Nulldrifter, you get to draw your 2 cards on cast, and assuming that this enters, you also are going to get to copy the power of that creature, and that gives you yet another way to grow Eldrazi Mimic, in addition to just playing your large creatures normally and fairly. The biggest concern I have with the deck list is that I think it's relatively light on ways to cast Eldrazi Linebreaker from a mathematical standpoint. We have 4 copies of Cavernous Souls and 2 Secluded Courtyards, and the rest of this stuff here is colorless. That seems like it is putting a little bit of strain on the mana base in a way that I'm not the biggest fan of, and it might be a little bit hard to evoke Nulldrifter. So we will see if the upside of having a whole bunch of Ugin's Labyrinths ends up being worth it. I don't think I have anything interesting to say about the sideboard. I believe that there is a strictly better Ratchet Bomb that has been printed. I'm blanking on the name of it off the top of my head. It's been a long day, so I'm not going to change it out. But if you would throw the name of that card down in the comments below, if you remember what I'm talking about, I would appreciate that. Yeah, so let's go ahead and hop into a league here, folks. If you need any cards for your Eldrazi deck or anything else, maybe some cute furry animals from Bloomborough, please consider checking out my sponsor, TOAmagic.com. Tales of Adventure has treated me well. They treat their customers well. You always get free shipping, and promo code ThrabenU will even save you a little bit on your order on top of that. This reminds me that I actually need to place an order. I've got until MagicCon Vegas, but I need to update my cards with Bloomburrow stuff. Or my decks with Bloomburrow stuff, rather. Alright, let's battle. Okay, so hand 1 is exactly what I'm talking about, where we don't have colored mana for our colored spells. I have 2, 4, 5 mana. I have a turn 2 Chalice of the Void. I don't think I'm very excited about this hand. The second Chalice is not particularly good either. Fuck. I am on the play. I'm on the play. This hand is, I think, fine on the draw. On the play, I'm just not putting anything aggressive into play. And these Ancient Dooms deal an exceptional amount of damage to me. I think I can just do better. So, I am into this as a 5. I think Kozilek's Command is going back. I am going to play turn 1 Mimic into turn 2 Thoughtseer. And the question is, like, am I doing Ugin's Labyrinth? It's very bad against an opposing Wasteland. Let's try to keep it. It is an Eldrazi Mirror. So I don't play this on turn 1 to avoid Wasteland. I don't have to. I can just play Mimic. And then hopefully I get the first relevant play. Like hopefully I get to Thought-Knot Seer, take my opponent's relevant 3-drop, and then smash. Ooh, my opponent sent some good cards to exile. Fuck, I didn't want them to have a turn 1 play. Alright. You've got it. So, Ugin's Labyrinth. Exile Nulldrifter. Doesn't cost me life. Thought-Knot Seer. Eldrazi Mimic gets big. So my opponent has 4 mana, so they can Kozilek's Command and get rid of a thing. Get rid of my Eldrazi Mimic. My Eldrazi Mimic might not be doing a lot. Glaring Fleshraker is the scariest card in this hand in many capacities. It represents chump blockers and mana. I think I have to take the Kozilek's Command. I think this accelerating my opponent by 2 and just getting them to these 6/6s that stall my board is very bad. Ugh, I hate it. I imagine that my opponent just stabilizes this board and I lose handily. I'm just down too many cards to start with here. Okay, my opponent's Thought-Knot Seer misses, thankfully. But their Thought-Knot Seer is better than my Thought-Knot Seer. Reality Smasher off the top would be hot. Ooh. Okay. I mean, yeah. So let's exile a creature with 4 or less, and then scry X and draw a card. I scry, do this. It does cost me 2 life here. Yeah. So I have 2, 4, 6 mana. I can always cast Nulldrifter next turn if I keep Eldrazi Temple. I never want this. I never want this. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. Just take my draw 2, turn this into a 4/4, and attack. I think the Annihilator is the most interesting thing here. We're going to top both of those last 2. Draw my card. Go to Punchies. I'll send in with both and see if my opponent wants to lose their It That Heralds the End. It seems like it might be helping my opponent bridge to these larger cards. I am okay treating this as a removal spell that has done some amount of damage to my opponent already. Yeah, they need it. I'm pretty afraid of what can happen this turn. Selling Mycospawn is kind of scary. 5 mana. Fuck. That's so good. They're going Eye of Ugin. Thought I was going to get Wastelanded. Can they keep the chain going from here? Alright, so we've got Endbringer, Devourer of Destiny left over there, I believe. Well, I mean, cast. Actually, I play Eldrazi Mimic first. In case things get weird with a haste outlet, maybe. No, I guess I'm only drawing 2 cards. Okay, and It That Heralds the End. Yeah. Let's play that. Not going to change the base power and toughness there. We are going to go to Punchies. With my opponent at 6, I believe I am okay swinging both of these. I'm trying to get one of these through to finish my opponent with Nulldrifter. on the following turn. Like, that is my objective plan for winning this game. I would love to kill Glaring Fleshraker. Okay, my opponent's just done with me. We won that mold at 5, right? Sweet. So we want Chalice of the Void out of the deck. These are an okay tempo play. Again, my mana base is not the best at utilizing them. And then I need to fill with one more card. Karn's Silex is expensive and slow, and I probably have more small creatures. Do I want to Ratchet Bomb, or specifically Eldrazi Scion blockers? I think that's better than Chalice. Disruptor Flute's not crazy. Karn Silex is not crazy. I'm not excited about either, though. Alright, I have kept my opening hand here and revealed a Devourer of Destiny to get my initial trigger. I hate seeing this Wasteland. It's very good against me here. So I probably need to keep at least one land on top here. Yeah, I'll draw an Eye of Ugin. I sent an Eye of Ugin to exile as well, so this is my only copy of this. If I get Wastelanded, would I prefer this Eye of Ugin go or this Eldrazi Temple go? It's not Ugin's Labyrinth. That's a 2-for-1 in a negative way for me. Probably Eldrazi Temple. The Eye of Ugin theoretically can provide more than 2 mana in a turn. There's Eye of Ugin. Am I going to get Wastelanded? Or are we going to see a Glaring Fleshraker? Sowing Mycospawn is some shit here. I don't know that I beat that card. It is a Thought-Knot Seer. That gets to take my Thought-Knot Seer, which is very, very, very strong. This has stabilized the ground and robbed me of my best play, and I don't have colored mana to just evoke Nulldrifter. Yeah. Come on, deck. Fuck. Yeah, my opponent basically got a time walk there. That's really savage. It doesn't really make sense to play this right now unless I'm trying to double block Thought-Knot Seer. Maybe I just need to put this body into play because if my opponent wastelands me and I'm down 2 mana, I just don't have future plays. Thanks, I hate it. Yeah, I don't really see how I win this game from here. I'm so dead to a Sowing Mycospawn. This wasteland is already devastating. Opponent's board is stable as of right now. Yeah, there's the green. Yeah. F. I lose Temple. I'll lose Eye next turn. I can't bridge to all of these expensive cards in my hand. Yeah, no, we can concede. I'm not winning this one. Yeah, I mean, this is the cost of trying to enable Ugin's Labyrinth. That sort of thing is going to happen sometimes. No changes to sideboarding here. This hand absolutely slaps if I hit a red source in my top 6 cards. Or wait, is this 4? So I'm going to look at 5 cards to attempt to Eldrazi Linebreaker immediately. I think I need to math for this. So I have 5 hits, 5 looks in 53. That's only a 40% success rate. Do I accept that given that I can just Kozilek's Command for 2 if I miss? That sounds acceptable. Okay, there's a cavern. We'll put the cavern back. There is a discussion to be had about which one of these lands you should play. If my opponent immediately just snaps off Wasteland on my Eldrazi Temple while I have the threat in play, then it is worse to not lose Ancient Tomb, which is what we are seeing. So I will bash in for 2. I don't have another play this turn now. Hopefully I just get to play Eldrazi Linebreaker into Eldrazi Linebreaker and take this game over. I am playing out Ancient Tomb because I believe that I need to protect this red source. Fuck. Yeah. Well, hopefully we draw another soul land in the next 2 draw steps. Never didn't have it. Combat. 16. Alright, good. It's not third wasteland. Sure. So, Cavern on Eldrazi. Now the trample comes from this. So we will give the Eldrazi Linebreaker haste. I'm always attacking with this one. This one's a little harder, because this does contribute to the count for the Eldrazi Linebreakers. Like, this is worth 2 damage per turn, next turn, and on, just sitting in play between the 2 triggers. But my opponent might not even block right now. They may want to try to multi-block the Linebreaker in the future. I think I'm going to leave the Battlescape Mage back. That might be a mistake. One's at 11. I also just do have a removal spell in my hand that I can use to take that thing out. So fucking terrified of Sowing Microspawn. Sowing Microspawn can make the board bigger quickly or obliterate my lands. Okay. So, my opponent probably has a removal spell. This feels like a Kozilek's command for X equals 3 to remove my Eldrazi Linebreaker. So, I am going to attempt to go to combat. And then my opponent is going to remove this, so that I don't get this trigger. Okay, so they are going for spawns. Understood. These are 1/2s currently. I think I am setting up for a big turn. So let's make spawns, exile a creature. Make spawns, exile a creature. So we're going to shrink these creatures, and then just try to continue to be the aggressor here. Make Linebreaker, Biggie, and Attacky. Then swing in for 7 points of damage. Every point of damage is relevant here because of the Ancient Tomb. So that Ancient Tomb does not produce mana since my opponent did not jump block once. Wonder if they realized that. The Yavimaya helps a lot here. Alright, hit that heralds the end. Well, Reality Smasher still kind of fucks. Not going to lie to you. I am perfectly happy with that draw. Yup. I feel weird at the end of this round. I feel like I should have lost and I didn't lose. It feels like after getting double wastelanded off my initial stuff that I should have lost. I don't know what my opponent's remaining cards are, but I wonder if this game was winnable from their seat with different play. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, which is an absolutely awesome place to keep all of your deck lists. I keep all of my personal deck lists there as well, in addition to all of the stuff that I do for the stream. And in the future, they're going to have a social media site on here too. So if you're worried about other certain websites dying, maybe join Moxfield, put your deck lists up there, and in the future, you'll be there for social media stuff too. My opponent is mulliganing pretty deep at the beginning of round 2 here. I have a Chalice into Linebreaker start that I can back up with Wasteland at some point, depending on what I think is correct. This hand is likely to be good. The Nulldrifter is a draw 2 that I don't think I'm going to cast this game. I kind of just imagine my opponent conceding to the second Linebreaker in this game the vast majority of the time. Oh. So, my opponent is doing something unfair. This is probably either Reanimator or Oops All Spells. It could be a weird white deck of some kind. So, I think what we are going to do here is Cavern, put it on Eldrazi, play Chalice on 0 to stop artifact mana, and then pay for this Chancellor trigger. And then I still have Linebreaker into Linebreaker as ways to remain aggressive. Okay, it is Oops. So my opponent dealt damage to themselves here, which probably means that they have an Entomb that they would like to do something with. So I believe that I'm wastelanding rather than playing a threat this turn. Okay, there's the Entomb. I'll let my opponent make their selection, and then I will wasteland them. So that is a Spy to Graveyard. We're going to take out that land. Now, land plus Reanimate does kill me here. We're hoping to dodge that. That is unfortunately the Reanimate. So in case you don't know how this works, my opponent is now going to reveal cards from the top of their deck until they reveal a land. Oh shit, they didn't have any lands. And I am going to die to a Dread Returned Thassa's Oracle. Make this big for me. Where are we at? Anything weird here? Not really. This stuff looks pretty stock. Let's just confirm that the appropriate cards are out. So there's Thassa's Oracle. Where's Dread Return? There's Dread Return. Okay. Dead. So Leyline is great. Thorn of Amethyst is great. Disruptor Flute is, I guess, fine. I don't think I'm excited about these. This can technically disrupt some stuff. Basically, I win this match by all getting to Leyline. They can't answer it, and then they have to try to fight you on a fair creature axis, and you are playing tentacle monsters, and that probably doesn't go well for them. Kozilek's Command and Nulldrifter are probably my weakest slots. Those probably become Leylines and Thorns. The only thing that boarding out the Nulldrifter does, though, is it makes Ugin's Labyrinth worse at being a 2-mana thing to play Thorn or Chalice on 1. Actually, that Herald's the End is probably not super relevant, especially if I'm boarding that out. Let's take some Flutes, and let's keep a couple of Nulldrifters specifically as a pseudo mana source. This isn't perfect, but I am probably not throwing back many Leyline of the Void hands. So Yaw and Yaw. Would like to find a... Okay. I was about to say, I would like to find colored mana, but Thorn is probably a good pickup. Yeah, I'm okay with that. So I will Eldrazi Temple and pass. And I will probably Thorn before Thought-Knot Seer. I'll think about it a little bit. But I think this just helps so much with the things that can answer my Leyline or otherwise put fair creatures into play. Sure. Okay, yeah. No, I was very concerned with what was coming. Opposition agent was like, what are you going to do with 3 black mana at instant speed? Alright. Same plan. Leyline good. Hold a Leyline. Win. This is a hand that just loses to my opponent doing their thing. Easy mulligan. This is not perfect. I think it's a keep. It's got the Leyline. I think I'm getting rid of 1 Thought-Knot Seer. So this is currently turn 3, turn 4. I'm hoping turn 2, turn 3. Now, a way that I can lose would be Grief, black card, black land, reanimate, maybe my Eldrazi Linebreaker, and just start going to town on my resource, and I never draw another land. Otherwise, it feels like I'm pretty highly favored already. My opponent's on a deep mulligan, and I have Leyline covered. Ooh. I think I play this land. It maybe costs me some points of life, but sometimes I gain the ability to Thought-Knot Seer next turn if I draw a 7-drop or another soul land. Cool. Negative? But this is gonna hurt. So stating the obvious, this trigger happens every turn. So my Thought-Knot Seers for the next 2 turns are both going to gain haste. Alright, opponent's just chilling. Not playing that Ancient Tomb. Play Courtyard. Uncounterable. Opponent can keep their mana. I will take the Spy. Target our Thought-Knot Seer. This is 9 damage. Our opponent is dead on board with only mana in hand. Yeah. The current builds of Oops All spells are very, very, very bad at answering Leyline. Previous versions were more green heavy, so they had access to things like Force of Vigor or an Evoke creature that got rid of this. And the current build, in fitting in the Entomb Grief stuff, has dropped the ability to have that same degree of interaction. Okay. This is a weird one. My hand almost does a lot of things. Devourer of Destiny, finding a 2-drop makes this pretty reasonable. Finding a land that can play Chalice on 1 maybe makes this keepable. This one's a little sketchy. I'm going to try to lean on the fact that I am on the draw and keep this one. I'm not sure about that, though. This is the sketchiest one that I have kept in this league. Just more Eldrazi? Yeah. Maybe let's find Wasteland now? Chalice sucks. Okay, Mimic versus Linebreaker. So if I play Mimic on turn 3, I am attacking for 10. If I play Linebreaker, am I going to get 5 to 7 damage out of it? Yeah, most certainly. I'm going to go with Linebreaker. I'm going to go I and put a Chalice on 0 here. This Chalice is not doing anything else, so stopping a random Lotus Petal or Mox Diamond might do some work. Yeah, that's fine. Traditionally I want to attack Soul Lands. I think I am good with this mana reset, though. I think since my deck doesn't have Sowing Mycospawn, attacking my opponent's colored mana might be wise. Okay, cool. That at least allows me to get on board a little bit and starts putting, Devourer of Destiny into a more castable range. Fuck! That's so good. And it's also pretty good, honestly. Cavern goes on Eldrazi. Bastion for 2. The hope is that my opponent does not make a meaningful play this turn and I stay ahead on board. Negative. Well, I guess I haven't cast anything yet, but... Black, huh? Are you doing the... Oh, no. You just picked a different color. Sure. This is horrifying. Let's... 2 Wastelands have been used. Let's try to save the life here. Yeah. Yeah. Big. We are sending in for 6. 6 with this, and then another 2 over here. This is a lot of damage. And my opponent might not be accounting for Reality Smasher levels of damage in their math. That's not a stock card. It's not even a common card. We're just hoping not to get wastelanded. Again, Sowing Mycospawn, huge problem in these pseudo mirrors. That's not a 4th mana immediately. Okay. That makes the spawn tokens into better blockers. That's a very good combination. Oh god, another one. Those things are big. Sure. Chalice is quite bad. I'm certainly playing Reality Smasher. That much is clear. Now what am I doing with this Eldrazi Linebreaker trigger? This is kind of the defining moment. If I attack with a 9 power Reality Smasher, my opponent technically doesn't have to block. They could just live through that. If I attack with both of my trample creatures, I can have a 7 and a 6 power creature. I think I need to keep the Eldrazi Linebreaker around. I think that's how I end up finishing my opponent off. Opponent could, like, get rid of all of these to take out my Reality Smasher. I think the Glaring Fleshraker always ends up staying on board. Ooh, it might be both Lords instead. Sure. So my opponent takes 3 damage from that. These are now much worse blockers. I've played my land drop. I'll pass the turn. And we'll just see what my opponent can do with their big mana here. Kozilek's Command on my Linebreaker is really bad. I do have this Devourer of Destiny that I can fish out from under the Ugin's Labyrinth, but not the mana to cast it. Okay, my opponent went into the tank for a little while. They have played another Glaring Fleshraker, so the rest of this turn could get a little wild. The limiting factor is my opponent's 2 cards in hand. There's some Ancient Tomb damage. Opponent reconsidering. Why for only X equals 3? Is that just enough to kill me already? That puts me to 2. Where's the other 2 damage coming from? Like, tapping the Cavern of Souls also just does it. Or is there just another Kozilek's Command coming? There is a Sowing Mycospawn. That is, unfortunately, lethal damage. Just for giggles. Top card was a Linebreaker. Ooh. Alright. Very, very close game. Okay, Chalice of the Void out. Wasescape Battle Mage in. Again, like Bomb or Karn Silex are both awkward. I could Disruptor Flute, I guess. There are some cards in their deck that aren't in my deck. Sure. Doesn't exactly feel good. I don't feel like I have enough cards for the mirror, which is going to be very popular. It feels like this is not keepable. My first threat is turn 3. I have Devour of Destiny to maybe do a turn 2 play. That Devour of Destiny trigger misses, I'm in really bad shape. Not great versus Wasteland. I do have colored mana. Ugin's Labyrinth is such a high-risk card in this metagame where Eldrazi mirrors are everywhere. I feel like I'm just never going to get to cast these cards versus an opposing Wasteland Mycosynth deck. I think I have to mulligan this. Yikes. That is unplayable. The 5-card hand is fine as long as I don't get Wastelanded. This is a keep. Battle Mage goes back. And I think I'm just getting rid of my most expensive card here. We will go land go. We want to protect the Ancient Tomb in hand until I use that mana. And hopefully I just come out of the gate swinging faster than my opponent can handle. I'm okay with that reset. Yeah, technically should do this in the upkeep. It shouldn't matter in this matchup though. Lotus Petal is scary. Yikes. Oh shit. No additional lands. Well, Eldrazi Linebreaker has some words for you, my friend. Now, why did my opponent keep their hand? That is my current question. They kept 6. Let's find out. Name Eldrazi. I want to find out if there is some weird bullshit over there that is going to ruin my life. You would like to dismember me? This is acceptable. My opponent draws their card first, and then I take something. Alright, so now my opponent has a land. It feels like I take their Glaring Fleshraker and leave them bottlenecked on mana. Eldrazi Linebreaker is defensible as well. It's one of the 3 drops. I think it's Glaring Fleshraker. We'll get big, attack for 4. And then sometimes I get to play both It That Heralds the End and Eldrazi Linebreaker on my next turn. So here is the red mana for that Linebreaker. My opponent will hold that back defensively. Now this is a base 3/3 creature. So, yeah, I will not. So take 2, play It That Heralds the End. And then, yeah. Play Eldrazi Linebreaker. I have 2 of these triggers. One goes here. One goes there. And we just absolutely run our opponent over. So I'm going to assume that the Eldrazi Temple was the draw off Thought-Knot here. My opponent kept Cavern Petal, and then just didn't ram out Glaring Fleshraker or Linebreaker. Maybe I'm going to 5 on that hand, is all I am saying. I am putting wins on the board, but I just feel like my deck is terribly positioned in these mirrors. I'm so afraid of Wasteland. And I just feel like, other than my hyper-aggressive aggro elements, that I am slower than my opponent on average. I am on the draw. I get to select a thing. I have 4 lands, one of which is Wasteland. My opponent is mulliganing already. I am going to try to keep this one. And I think I lose to Lotus Petal Soul Land turn 1 card. Otherwise, I'm okay. Hour of Destiny. Just pass. Stop it. Fuck. No. Yeah, now it is very hard to do my Wasteland-oriented play. Well, I knew what I was losing to when I kept the hand. Can I mimic my way out of this? Probably not. I think I am playing my own Linebreaker on turn 2. I protect the red source here, I think. I could do this and Disruptor Flute immediately. Yes. Okay, opponent does not have more land. So, if I can weather the storm, my opponent missed damage by not giving It That Heralds the End haste. They missed 2 damage. I am thankful for that. Alright, it doesn't matter. GG's. I just physically, I think, cannot come back from that degree of pressure backed by disruption. Ooh. Yeah, no, we were never beating this hand. Absolutely never. Like, my opponent got the turn 1 Lotus Petal Soul Land opener, got a threat down before I could make a play. Yeah, I mean, I trade. but this is just lethal. Like, I can chump block to stay alive, but I am not drawing 2 outs. Okay, this hand is quite slow. I have a turn 3 acceptable creature, a turn 4 acceptable creature. My Kozilek's command is relatively weak here most of the time. My wastelands can't super be used as wastelands. This hand would be bad against basic lands. I don't think I like this hand. This hand cannot cast any spells in its entire hand, including the evoked Nulldrifters. We will go to 5. We will go to 4. Yeah. This is like very easily the best hand so far, by the way. Like, this is just going to turn 2 Eldrazi Linebreaker uncounterably into Thought-Knot Seer most of the time. And hopefully we don't get wastelanded. If I get wastelanded, I want to have Eye available still. I just need the Soul Land. You can make the argument that the colored mana is more important, but I think if I get wastelanded, the Thought-Knot Seer becomes increasingly more important. Go on, 3rd Eldrazi match. Let's fucking go. Yeah. Fuck. Lotus Petal's so good. Why am I not playing Lotus Petal? Yeah, so now my opponent got their Linebreaker down first and has more cards left in hand. This is a disaster. I'm at 16. Alice. Fuck! I have Ugin Cavernous Souls. Right. This is reducing. Yeah, I don't actually have Eldrazi Linebreaker. Fuck. My bad on that one. We require raw colorless. I'll Chalice on 0 so my opponent can't play another Petal, but we're dead. Yeah, like my opponent can play a Thought-Knot Seer now. Attack in for 9. I die the following turn. Yeah, no. That's rough. Eldrazi Linebreaker will just kill me. I'm not gonna bother. We died. So I hate that I am playing an Eldrazi build that is bad in the mirror. But we can wrap up the video here. Like, I think that is reason enough to shelve this build. Like, the fact that I have access to fewer wastelands than my opponent and my cards are just worse against wasteland means that I don't think I want anything to do with this deck. Yikes. Okay. This is fine. I do not... Have I cast a Nulldrifter this league yet? Feels like no. Get rid of Nulldrifter. I'm going to go ahead and lead on Eye and Mimic. And pass. We've got a Soul Land. Hopefully no Lotus Petal. Cool. Ooh. Yes. So, Temple. Thought-Knot Seer. Make Mimic big. Getting Dismembered. Yeah, not having access to Dismember for our Eldrazi Mirrors is also rough. Sure. Is that how that works? Yeah, it's that creature's power and toughness, not that creature's base power and toughness. Okay. Wow, another Dismember. So that's an Eldrazi Linebreaker without the ability to cast it. I guess I am taking Thought-Knot Seer, and then the same thing happens in the next turn cycle. I at least get to... Getting Wasteland and Dismembered is not pretty. I don't really want to lose a card to Thought-Knot Seer, though. Taking Thought-Knot Seer. So there's Wasteland. We took this. I get Wastelanded. This card's not great. I don't even know that I can hold up Kozilek's command reasonably here. I think I'm just gonna attack for 2. Let's see if my opponent fires off Dismember. Send it. Opponent's at 12. Yeah, it's just really awkward playing that Thought-Knot Seer directly into this Dismember. Yeah? Yes. Okay, cool. This was very good for me. So when I scry X, draw a card. I can do this for X equals 2. I do it for X equals 3. I just get rid of this. Let's guaranteed get rid of that, given Cradle and Linebreaker in hand. Man, I really want to Wasteland, but I just can't right now. So, Labyrinth. I'm not doing that. Scry X, draw a card, exile creature. Yeah. Done. Don't have colored mana, you're going away. I don't have colored mana, you're going away. You're fine and beautiful. Top. 2. Okay. Hit that heralds the end is not that big of a deal. That wasteland is potentially very good. The Eye of Ugin is my best land right now from my perspective. Opponent disagrees. I'm thinking about wasteland, ancient tomb lines here. I can't multi-spell very well right now. The Thought-Knot Seer is very awkward into this Dismember. I think I am just having an awkward turn. So let's go yes here. Go to combat. Send in for 3. This is fine. This is going to be a 2-for-2 trade. Okay. Do your thing. So, my opponent has Dismembered. Okay. So this dies. This is going to go down and accordingly die. Now, I Wasteland Eldrazi Temple. My opponent can't tap Ancient Tomb for mana. And I probably win the game as soon as I top deck a land. And my opponent's Gaia's Cradle currently does not make any mana either. Cool. So there is a Thought-Knot Seer. I don't think it matters. I'm not going to think about it. Alright, cool. Well, I keep winning. Do my Wastecape Battle Mages suck? Do my Nulldrifters suck? Like, Wastecape Battle Mage should be a good card in the mirror, but I have fewer colored sources than my opponent, and my lands are being attacked massively. Like, Nulldrifter is just not castable. Should I be, like, aggressively Disruptor Fluting, like, Glaring Fleshraker or Sowing Mycospawn? On the draw, it doesn't make any sense to Chalice on 0. Disgruntled noises. I do not like my sideboarding options for the mirror. Multiple Ugin's Labyrinth with no 7-drops. Stonks. I'm going to briefly consider It That Heralds the End X3. I think I actually need to do some math on this hand. Like, is this keepable if I hit a 7-drop or a soul land? Like, would I keep turn 1, 2/2, turn 2, 2/3/3s, turn 3, 3/4/4s? That only feels fine. I don't think so. Yikes. Feels like I just lose. Like, do I keep this, name a wasteland, get rid of this, try to mana fix into turn 1, turn 2, turn 3? That doesn't feel good. I also take a large amount of self-damage from Ancient Tomb if I whiff on another good soul land. Actually, Ancient Tomb is the only thing that lets me Disruptor Flute immediately. I don't think I keep this. Okay. What does this do? Nothing? Fuck. On 5, I probably keep the hand that does nothing. No colorless mana. This card sucks. Disruptor Flute, also not great. Hard to cast that before my opponent can play their big things. You're in timeout. Are you? I'm always keeping these, and it's just what of these remaining cards is reasonable. Not castable the way I want to cast it. Awkward turn 2 play, and I'm hoping to do something different turn 2. Okay. What if I Disruptor Flute Wasteland on turn 1 off Ugin's Labyrinth? Okay. That's where we're at. I could alternatively Disruptor Flute like a Glaring Fleshraker or a Sowing Mycospawn and try to take a called shot. I don't want any of that. The Mimic's a decent play, but I don't have a follow-up here. I think I'm looking for, like, Thought-Knot Seers and Reality Smashers. Yeah, I'm junking all of that. It is an Ancient Tomb. Not what I wanted. Alright, Ugin's Labyrinth. Exile Devourer of Destiny. I think we are going for Wasteland here. And I just hope to top deck threats one after the other. Needs to be the colorless stuff. The colored mana is not live. See if I get punished for not blind naming Glaring Fleshraker. Sure. So my Wastecape Battle Mage is significantly worse than my opponent's version of it. Thanks, I hate it. I take 2 in combat. 18. Yeah. This sucks. My Ugin's Labyrinth is now kind of held hostage. Can't really use it for mana without getting 2 for 1, so I am just going to return the exiled card to my hand. An opponent then goes after my Eldrazi Temple. Sure. Classic. I'm going to play Eye, and I'm just going to cast this now as a blocker. I was going to try to wait to see what another draw step or two would bring me to see if I could actually get some tempo-oriented value from this. But now I think I just want to trade evenly with an opposing creature given the chance. Yeah, we are going to get fucking buried by Wastelands. I'm going to lose yet another soul land to this. The Thought-Knot Seer continues to be non-castable. Yeah, I'll take the even trade here. I have no castable cards. Pass turn. Lotus Petal? Kicked Sowing Mycospawn is now a thing. I will just concede to that if that is the case. I mean, that's very bad. This is 8 damage this turn and likely lethal damage next turn. That is no castable cards. We are dead. My deck is bad at the mirror. Okay, I do not feel like I have enough mana here. I have 2 castable cards, but I think I can just do better than this on average. This is not good. I would rather mulligan than keep this. Well, assuming no one interacts with me, this hand is fine. Chalice goes back. 1 Reality Smasher probably goes back. I could make the argument for Kozilek's Command going back, though. This is more castable. These are much higher reward. Much better against things like removal spells. I'm going to count on my deck to draw some mana here. And I'm going to do this in the way that is worse against Wasteland, better against a counterspell. Just don't want my opponent to know the cavern is coming. Okay, Underground Sea. By the numbers, probably a Risk Emanator deck. There are other options. Blue-Black and Grixis Tempo decks are pretty popular right now. Probably Psychic Frogs over there. We are playing an uncounterable Eldrazi this turn. I don't think I have any need to deviate from the plan, having drawn Eldrazi Mimic. We're just getting in there. I want to aggressively reduce my opponent's life total in case they are playing a combo deck like Doomsday or Storm, where their life total is relevant. Psychic Frog, which could be a 7/8 creature. That sucks. That means that I can't really attack into that. So this is uncounterable. We'll put it in play. Hopefully I can go wide of this Psychic Frog or force it on the defensive. But this is probably not going to be a particularly fun game of Magic, if I were to guess. Because my opponent is either going to just immediately remove Linebreaker and start getting in with Frog, or we're going to stall out and I'm not going to cast spells, and then my opponent will eventually win. I think I need to draw a Soul Land next turn. Okay, worst fears come true. My opponent is just drawing cards with Psychic Frog, which means that they can answer Eldrazi Linebreaker. So I expect that I have lost. Yeah, there's a Fatal Push. So there's another Cavern on Eldrazi. I only have 4 mana. I need 5 for these Smashers. I'll get in there with a Mimic, maybe. Bowmasters is not super common right now. Thank you. That is very, very rarely seen in Game 1 right now. That's a little frustrating. I think if my opponent converts to aggro with Psychic Frog, I just lose. I'm very bad at answering that frog right now. Unfortunately, I probably also just lose if they just continue to poke me for 1 while drawing cards. I think this is a you're good, it doesn't matter anymore thing. Sure. Now my Reality Smasher isn't even good. Like, I cannot attack with my 5/5 Haste Trampler into this frog, or I lose in the combat, which is a little absurd. Get this card out of my fucking format, please. 2, 3, 4, 5. I need a Soul Land to Devourer of Destiny trigger. Remove that frog if my opponent goes all in on it. I don't think I can commit. This sucks. This is not fun. Dark Ritual. Go on. I'm interested. Okay, it is Doomsday. So I'm going to die here. I think. My opponent just gets to draw a card with Psychic Frog and then do their Doomsday pile immediately. Sure. Opponent's at 7. Yeah, draw your card. It's unblockable. I can't stop it. Then I imagine that I die right now. Cycle. Consider. And then this will be like a petal or a land plus oracle. Oh, I see. Just unearth it. Yeah, that works. Cool. I don't think I'm changing anything for the Doomsday side of the deck. It feels like I should kill that. Like, on average, with all of this haste damage, like, that should be fine. Psychic Frog is more important to me than the entire thing that my opponent's deck is named after, which is telling. Does this mean that I board in, like, Wastegate Battle Mage? Like, am I going to try to bounce Psychic Frogs because it stops my deck from functioning? Do I Disruptor Flute? This feels miserable. Chalice doesn't feel like it does anything for the most part. I think I'm replacing Chalices with these. My Nulldrifters suck. They've been very bad all league. I'm going to keep them because I think with the way this deck is constructed, for me to get to that 2 mana every single time to start playing aggressive threats like that matters. I could Thorn. Like, I just play Thorn and I fucking lose to Frog just so easily. I board out Nulldrifters, I get worse at casting Thorn. Opponent has Bowmasters, I need to think about boarding out Mimic, but it's one of my fastest goldfishes possible. Maybe I split the difference. Do something like that. I don't know. Kozilek's Command gets worse. It's an answer to Frog. I hate this. I hate this so much. Ancient Tomb. Not playable hand. Not playable hand? Plays a turn 2 Thorn. Can't play a turn 3 follow-up Thorn. Can't play any of these other cards. I'll go to 5. Okay. This can Thorn on 1. Keep this, getting rid of Kozilek's Command. And I think I'm going to keep mana over keeping Wasteland. Devour trigger. 2/4. Am I okay drawing a Reality Smasher that might not be immediately castable? I think no. I think I just play 2 It That Heralds the Ends on turn 2. So yeah, trigger, Devour under 2 mana, Thorn. That's rough after mulligans. See if my opponent can follow it up. Not immediately, at least. So, yeah. I will just immediately lose the game to Psychic Frog on turn 2. Maybe I lose the game now. Yeah. I'm very, very bad off. Bad against Doomsday, bad against Psychic Frog. I'm not top decking well. A bunch of my cards aren't castable when I top deck them. That is probably a good top deck. I am unsure what to do about casting it. I think I have to hold it until my opponent's end step for if they play out Psychic Frog. I just have to be able to attempt to exile it. Waiting is just awkward because of Bowmasters specifically. Okay. There's the Frog. So hopefully this resolves. Exile creature, scry. Scry. Exile creature. 4 mana. This is Dazable. This is Force of Willable. I've seen 2 of the Force of Wills already. Okay, it is working. Nulldrifter is not castable. That's going on bottom. Wasteland, I think, is not what this game is about. I think I need another threat. That is not a threat. That lets me... God damn it. Alright. Send in. Feel like I am walking uphill both ways to school. Sure. Great. Any basics? No basic wastes in here. I do not have Dismembers. I have Eldrazi Mimics and Nulldrifters as castable cards. I am not technically out of this game, but this feels pretty bad. Guess I'm returning this. Not sure exactly what happens with those abilities and forgetting things that are in play and whatnot. I think I'm good, but I'm going to return it just in case. That's not castable. This doesn't get to name a thing. I'll attack for 2. My opponent is not trading their Harbinger away under any circumstances. And I pass. We're going to trade 2 points of damage back and forth. My opponent is playing Magic, though, while I am not. Yeah. So, Anything with an actual factual colorless symbol is not castable. My opponent can Brazen Borrower to start attacking me for 5 every turn cycle. This is kind of a foregone conclusion at this point. We'll play towards Nulldrifter, I guess. That's the best I've got to work with. This is 11, not castable. I'm not on outs anymore, though, right? I'm effectively at 6 life, and I can't top deck enough to get to Nulldrifter on time. Yeah. I think that's it. Yeah, you can take my cards. None of them have text. They are all yours, bud. All yours. Thought Not down. I mean, that's castable, technically. That stops that from attacking. That gives me one more draw. But I'm not playing removal. I don't get to take out Brazen Borrower. That is just going to kill me in one more attack step. 3 damage. And not castable. Colorless symbols in it. That was brutal. And I hated it. Alright, so where do we stand on this one? So, fundamentally, more than anything else, I feel like my deck is terribly positioned for the mirror. Ugin's Labyrinth sets you up to be terrible against Wasteland, and we're already bad against Wasteland. So it makes you worse against one of the best cards against you, and we're not green, so we don't have access to Sowing Mycospawn to rebuild from opposing Wastelands or find Wastelands of our own. That seems like a pretty big deal breaker to me. I either cast 0 Nulldrifters or 1 Nulldrifter in this league over the course of 5 rounds. This card felt very weak to me this time. It got stuck in hand. I don't think there are enough colored mana sources in this deck. In trying to squeeze Ugin's Labyrinth into the deck list, it is taking out colored sources, which make one of your best cards harder to cast. I think this build that is not playing Glaring Fleshraker and Sowing Mycospawn, which I consider to be 2 of the core cards of the Eldrazi deck right now, just kind of ends up being suboptimal. I think if you want to play Nulldrifters, you just play more regular old colored sources and you play Sowing Mycospawn in some of the slots where like Mimic or Smasher are. And then you are more realistically going to have both colored mana to evoke this and more realistically have 7 mana to hard cast it. If memory serves, I also did not cast a single Devourer of Destiny in this league. Like, we just, without Sowing Mycospawn, we were not making it to these higher mana values. And as far as the mirror goes, I don't have 4 cards to board in that are good to cleanly replace Chalice. I really miss Dismember or another similar effect. I know Dismember like has negatives on the life total, but answering things like opposing Linebreaker or Glaring Fleshraker really matters. I also think that that Heralds the End is a little worse without Glaring Fleshraker as another way to make your Eldrazi spawns and just kind of have an army in a can, rather than just a bunch of pings and some extra mana. So I think I ultimately give this exact build a thumbs down. I think you can get away with playing one of the things that aren't commonly seen here. Like, I think you could play Nulldrifter or Smasher. Like, I don't think it is unreasonable to be playing one of those 2 cards. But to play this and Mimic and Ugin's Labyrinth all at the same time felt like we were just generating a lot of clunk. I also missed Lotus Petal in this league. The ability to play a turn 1 Glaring Fleshraker or turn 1 Linebreaker is a really, really big deal. I get why this deck is not trying to play Lotus Petal, because you are trying to lean into these 2 drops instead, and then sometimes the Lotus Petal does not generate that extra value. But it feels like even if you wanted to just cut Chalice and just play 4 Lotus Petals, 4 Lotus Petals alone fixes Eldrazi Linebreaker quite a bit and gives you those sources for Nulldrifter. If you use things on Nulldrifter early, like if you use a Lotus Petal for a Nulldrifter, it's likely to draw you into more mana to continue on later. So I think this deck was trying to do a few too many things. Of everything here, I felt like Ugin's Labyrinth was the worst. So if, Chen, you are going to do some retooling, I would probably start by getting rid of this. Just in this Wasteland format, this is not going to have the same results that you might see with it in Modern. This is not just that soul land for free on turn 1. This has a very real downside of turning Wastelands into 2-for-1s against you. Not the biggest fan. With that, I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. Remember, if you need cards, consider checking out TOA and using promo code ThrabenU. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. See ya!